Hello and welcome back to Random Vids. So, yesterday I was ranking all the total drama characters, and then the thing just kinda stopped because I didn't notice I was doing it for like over an hour at this point. So, we'll be able to finish them today. So anyway, I'm not gonna sit here and say a 5 hour long intro. Hope you enjoyed the video, and let's continue off where we left off, which was Sky, but that means we have to move on to the next one, which would be Sammy, or as what everyone calls her, Sammy. Basically, if you took everything that I hated about Amy, then you get Sammy. I don't want to call her Sammy. Her name's Sammy, not Sammy. Don't be mean to her. Unlike her obnoxious twin, she's actually really nice. And I'm glad she found a friend, Jasmine, who is actually surprisingly nice around Sammy. And you gotta love the way that she gets back at her twin sister as well, even if that does mean she comes back and they both end up fighting and then they both get eliminated. But hey, at least she got some revenge for once. So yeah, I'm glad Sammy ended up staying in it longer than her twin sister did, because she definitely deserved it. And there's nothing else I really have to say. For Pagatu Island, she's not a bad character. The only gripe is that she isn't in it that long. Anyway, let's move on to number 35, which would be Cameron. So here's the other person who made it to the finals in Revenge of the Island, and was one of the people who returned in All-Stars. This is the second one after Lightning. Man, even if All-Stars was definitely more of a weaker season, at least they did a good job when it came to the cast. We had one bad character and got out immediately. Cameron's a pretty interesting character. He's what they call Bubble Boy, and very afraid of a lot of things, but in a much more interesting way than people like Jay and Mickey, where they just don't have any other personalities. I also like how Cameron's smart too, and tries to help out his teammates as much as possible. And I like his relationship with literally all the people in Revenge of the Island, from Lightning at first, to Mike and Zoe, to heck, even friggin' Joe, which is funny. And him helping out Joe even if he didn't really want to, he does it anyway. And even when Joe gets booted off, I forget what he said, but Joe actually agreed to it or something like that. And in some cases, he ended up winning Revenge of the Island, which I thought was perfect. And it was a lot better than the alternate ending where Lightning wins. Yeah, the first time I watched it, Lightning won, and it was just really awkward moment. But when I rewatched it on the Netflix version, it was Cameron who ended up winning, which is a lot better, by the way. And I like how Cameron kind of coped with Lightning's aggressive behavior. Lightning wanting to be his stupid, annoying self, and Cameron actually did a good job coping with it. Also with the help of his friends. Also find it funny how towards the end, no one is rooting for Cameron except for no one is rooting for Lightning except for Joe. It's so dumb yet so funny. And I like how he returned in All-Stars as well. He's an interesting enough character. He did get eliminated this time, though, in 7th place, but I would rather see Mike and Zoe in the final 3 than Cameron and Lightning again, honestly. Besides, Cameron already won, and I'm glad I got to see him again in All-Stars, and I like, yet again, his friendship with Gwen and even Sierra a little bit at one point, which is funny, and him continuing the friendship with Mike and Zoe, and man, I'm talking a lot about Cameron. You can tell we're getting into, like, the good characters now. Alright, now let's move on to number 34, which is Harold. Man, what an interesting character. So, in the original season, Harold was a little more quiet and didn't really talk that much, and ended up getting eliminated like midway through. In action, however, he ended up staying in it a lot longer and got a lot of character development. And then in World Tour, he was literally like the 2nd or 3rd eliminated. So, okay. Honestly, I think if they're not going to do Lindsay in the final 2 in All-Stars, they should have done Harold. Just because him and Duncan's rivalry is just so funny, and he had a lot of character development, plus he's more interesting than Beth is. And not saying Beth is bad, she's just okay, but Harold is definitely better. And the fact he made it to like 5th place, he could have made it to like 2nd or 1st. I feel like the final 2 would have been better if it was Harold and Duncan instead of Duncan and Beth, but whatever. Also like how every time he's like, gosh. And I like his relationship with Lashana as well. It's so random yet funny. So yeah, nothing else I really have to say about Harold. Definitely a good character. So let's move on to number 33, and that would go to DJ. I know, to some people, DJ is like their top 10 favorite total drama characters of all time. And, I mean, he's definitely a pretty interesting character. I just think there's others that are better. Maybe, I'm about to say maybe top 10 from the original cast, but I don't know. I don't mind DJ and everything, but I feel like there's others that are better and have better character development, etc. DJ stayed in it pretty long in Total Drama Island, up to 7th place. In Action, he only stayed in it for a few episodes, and same with World Tour. I feel like he was the best in Island, though, because in Action, he was just worried about his mama the whole time, and then the whole thing with him and Chef forming an alliance just kind of threw off the game, I guess. World Tour wasn't quite as bad. All what happened is that he got cursed, and then a bunch of animals would get hurt because of him. I mean, for a running gag, it actually wasn't terrible. It actually wasn't terrible. And because DJ got eliminated fairly early in not All Stars, in World Tour, the joke of him hurting the animals didn't drag on for too long, unlike Carrie and Devin's relationship in the Redonkulous race. Overall, I like DJ. He's a fun character. Now let's move on to number 32, which would be Scarlet. Man, I don't understand the hate for this character. Now, yeah, not everyone hates her like they do Dave, but I found a lot of the rankings, she was more on the lower half of the list. Which, I mean, yeah, if you do boil things down, she is just a clone of, Beth or Harold from the original seasons. She literally could be fit in with one of the scientists, but I guess this was before the Redonkulous race. And the fact that she helped out Max, who was already a kind of meh character, and that she helped out Amy, who was a terrible character, and when she wanted to blow up the island and all that stuff. But honestly, that doesn't really annoy me with Scarlet. In fact, that episode is probably the best episode of Pocket 2 Island, the one where Scarlet tries to blow up the island, because it actually ended up being an interesting episode for what was such a bad season. And having Scarlet be a surprise villain was it was surprising, and I actually enjoyed it. Plus, she's a pretty interesting character, too. They did a decent amount with her, and it almost seems like she's in love with Max, which is really funny, even though it's proven in the episode that she tries to blow up the island that it doesn't really work like that. Or, I mean, they don't love each other. But man, I don't understand the hate for this character. She's so interesting and gave Pocket 2 Island a bad season actually a decent character. Besides her teaming up with Amy, I don't find anything else annoying about her. And come on, we know who the true villain is this season, Chris McLean. Scarlet was only shown her true villain side in the one episode, and then was, I guess, not back to normal, but booted off. Chris was in the whole frickin' season, and he was annoying as heck. So yeah, I don't mind Scarlet, and I find her a better Pocket 2 Island character. Alright, let's move on to number 31, which is Sierra. We've reached my brother's favorite character, and I mean, she's definitely a really interesting character. The whole thing with her being obsessed with Cody, honestly, is the most funniest stuff I've ever seen in the show. It's also funny because Cody is the one who liked Gwen in the original season and in World Tour, so it was funny seeing Cody kind of feel like he's in Gwen's shoes now whenever Sierra's always around where Cody is. And I think they did a good job in World Tour of keeping it like Sierra likes Cody a lot, but also not making it super annoying. Like, they did a good job finding a good balance with that. It especially shows in the second to last episode where Sierra helps Cody out to make it to the finish line before Heather and Alejandro, which that's really nice. And she's there bald and in a wheelchair, like ready to go home, but she's still there to help Cody. So it's nice seeing her nice side rather than her obsessive side as well. And because why not, she ended up returning in Total Drama All-Stars. The fourth character now. She didn't quite make it quite as far in All-Stars. She ended up getting in, like, 9th place, I think. Which, that's pretty bad. From 4th to 9th place. It was fun seeing Sierra again. The only thing is that I feel like they kind of... You know how in World Tour, they did a good job finding a good balance between her obsessive side and normal side. All-Stars, I feel like they started leaning more towards the crazy, weird, obsessive side. And heck, it went so far that she thought Cameron was actually Cody. Okay then. But you know what? I don't mind Sierra, and I know a lot of people don't like her because of how annoying she is and how obsessive she is over Cody. But I mean, I don't mind that, and I found it a lot of fun to watch. It was a lot better than the whole stupid love triangle we got that season, which, like I said, this was a good change of pace. So yeah, I liked Sierra. She's an interesting character. So now let's move on to I'm trying to think now. Number 30, which would go to Scott. Man, talk about character development. In Revenge of the Island, Scott was the apparent bad guy. And he honestly didn't really do a good job of being a bad guy, besides just copying stuff that Heather or Alejandro were doing and just making it more lazy. And overall, he was just honestly a kind of dislikable character in Revenge of the Island, especially the whole episode where he blackmails Mike. Like, come on. I think he was still better than Lightning, though, but I honestly didn't really like him that much in Revenge of the Island. What kept him better than Lightning is because he isn't quite as annoying, and also the fact the whole him versus Fang thing, and that was really funny. It's too bad we didn't see too much of it in Revenge of the Island. Well, I guess we saw a decent amount, but that didn't really save from all the annoyance that he brought over Revenge of the Island. Now, All-Stars, on the other hand, man, even though that season yeah, I said it before, it's my favorite out of the newer ones between 4, 5, and 6. And, yeah, at least it was something. And Scott ended up returning, but was actually really likable this time around. Yeah, he was put on the villains team, but now he was actually hilariously funny and was actually semi-nicer. And yes, Fang returned too, so you could still see the Scott versus Fang thing, which was hilariously funny. And heck, he ended up making it a little further this time around, literally, from 4th to 3rd. Congratulations. And even though he was put on the villains team, he didn't really act like a villain this season, not like the original at least. And I didn't even talk about the whole thing with him and Courtney, too. The whole love triangle thing was super annoying, and I'm glad that All-Stars kind of stopped that thing. Well, until Sunday Muddy Sunday, then I just ruined it again. But let's talk before that. Because Courtney and Duncan broke up, now Courtney actually started falling in love with Scott, who started falling in love with Courtney. That was such a surprise, relationship I never would have thought I'd seen, but I like it. With Courtney being a more, I don't know how you say it, I guess stubborn, grumpy character, and then Scott being annoying as he was in Revenge of the Island, it was nice seeing these two hook up. And I like how Scott has the, trying to learn how to be a boyfriend in a relationship type of thing, and it was so funny. And it was nice seeing him act like more of just a nicer, more interesting character, plus funny and even a little stupid at times, which is a lot better than what he was in Revenge of the Island. So, I like Scott. Scott's definitely one of my favorites in All-Stars, but Revenge of the Island, he's definitely one of my least favorites, so I have to put him more, I don't know. I guess the good things in All-Stars overpower the annoyance of Revenge. So, he's definitely one of my favorite characters. Now, let's move on to number 29, which would go to Mike. Wow, actually making a interesting Revenge of the Island character. I like it. Mike suffers from multiple personality disorder, so he gets Old Man Charles, Olympic Svetlana, and then 2 others I can't remember the name of. The one is the without the shirt Vito. And the other one I can't remember, but he's almost like an Indiana Jones type of dude. And of course, in All-Stars, we got released to the 5th one, Mal. Or should I say 6th? I don't know. I feel like Mike is kind of vice versa of Scott. I loved him a lot in Revenge of the Island, and I liked his not personality, but I liked his relationship with Zoe. It was a nice, cute, funny relationship. And although the him telling Zoe about his multiple personality thing did take a long time, but it was definitely a lot better than the Devin and Carrie thing from Redonkulous Race. That annoyed me. And it was nice seeing Cameron help out Mike as much as he possibly could, too.
and it was nice seeing that he was one of the returning characters in All-Stars. Unfortunately, though, he ends up getting another personality, Mal, who is the evil one of them all. So Mal takes over Mike eventually and ends up being the main villain of the season, who honestly has to be the worst villain of all time. It's just such a typical boring villain. I find Mike better than Scott, though, just because even though Mal did take over Mike, at least Mike at the end made it to the final two this time around and ended up taking back his personality and in some cases ended up winning, like the first time I watched it. Plus, Mike is just so nice if Mal isn't there, so he's just a likable character. And nothing else I really have to say, so let's move on to number 28, which would go to Kitty. So Kitty is one of the people who ended up in the redonkulous race with her sister. And, I mean, Kitty's an interesting character. Especially in the first half of the season. I like the way that she wants to take pictures of everything, is just happy-go-lucky and stuff. It also works because she was voiced by the same person who voiced Lindsay. And she tried to get her sister Emma out of her grumpy moods. And even when found out when Noah liked Emma, and told Emma about it, helping them with their relationship to get stronger. And it was nice seeing Kitty help her sister out with the relationship, especially since Emma and her other boyfriend Jake broke up, and that was hard on her, so Kitty tried her best to help her through that. So it was nice seeing Kitty try to hook up Emma and Noah and do a good job doing it. However, after that, that's when she started going downhill. You see, Noah and Emma's relationship is now pretty strong, and they want to focus more on each other rather than the race. Which, that's fine. I guess we had stuff like that with Jeff and Bridget in Action. Well, I guess not really that. They still want to race and stuff, and they're trying to, but they want to be in an alliance and stuff, which is something that Kitty suggested. However, Kitty, for some reason, has a random change, and now all of a sudden cares about the money instead of their relationship, and wants Emma to break up with Noah. And now Emma's more like, no, why would I want to do that? Like, that's stupid. But Kitty slaps her and stuff, is like, no, the money's more important, etc. So then Emma makes the hard decision to end up breaking up with Noah at the end of that episode, and then just is heartbroken the next episode. And sees the way that Noah acts in the next episode, and then Emma's like, was that really the right idea? And she ends up going back to Noah then the next episode after, or the end of that episode, which was so nice to see. And then the rest of the time before Noah and Owen were eliminated, it was a lot of Emma and Noah hanging out, but still kind of focusing on the money, so a good balance between the two. Man, how did this character become so dislikable? And what happened? She was so likable in the first half of the season, but the whole middle, when Emma and Noah hooked up, that she helped, and then she got grumpy because of it, why? I just hated the way that she convinced Emma to break up with Noah, even though she's the one who convinced Emma to fall in love with Noah. Why the random personality change? I hate it so much. Worst thing about Total Drama is when they try to break up relationships. Gwen and Trent, then Carrie and Devin, Courtney and Duncan, Courtney and Scott, and now Emma and Noah, and just because of Kitty convincing Emma. Ugh, that really rubs me the wrong way, but thank God they got together the next leg after, and Kitty just had to deal with it. Good, she can deal with it. If she didn't want Emma and Noah being together, then she didn't have to do it in the first place. But no, she was a nice enough sister back then to do it. And I feel like once Noah and Owen got eliminated, Emma and Kitty were just kind of more there, just surviving. Kitty was sort of more back to normal just because Noah wasn't there, but I still didn't forget what she did. So yeah, I liked Kitty in the first half of the season, but hated her in the middle half, which kind of then just destroyed her whole character in my opinion. But because we got a good first half, and she did help Emma and Noah out, then she ends up getting at least a good enough character. I still don't really like the second half of her, though, but we're going to forget that exists. Alright, number 27 would go to Cody. So this is an interesting character. He was in Total Drama Island, mainly just to flirt with Gwen, but also realized Gwen liked Trent. But still flirted anyway, because he still liked Gwen, which is which is funny. But he ended up getting eliminated fairly early. Action, he was barely seen, and then World Tour, he got to come back in another season. And like I said before, it was fun seeing the whole thing with Sierra and Cody, and it was one heck of a lot better than seeing the whole stupid love triangle, which was in the same season. Cody was more active this time around, and actually made it to the final frickin' 3, which that's crazy. Going from one of the first ones eliminated to the final 3, that's crazy. Well, I guess Beth got eliminated right after Cody, but then made it to the final 2 in action, and ended up winning in some cases. It was nice seeing Cody again, and that he had a lot of character development in the season. And I'm glad that, like, it's fun seeing him, like, just let Sierra go on with her obsession, and it's just so funny. Not saying I hate Cody, but it's almost like he gets a taste of his medicine, seeing what he does with Gwen, and then what Sierra does with him, even though Sierra is a lot more, I guess, I don't know how you call it, but a lot more than Cody is with Gwen. But yeah, just boils down to a very good original cast character. So now let's move on to number, I believe, 26, which would go to Emma. So here's the other sister. I feel like she's kind of vice versa of Kitty. The first few episodes, she was kind of just She was kind of annoying, not gonna lie. She was mainly bossing her sister around, doing this, doing that. But as the Redonkulous race went on, she became a lot more interesting character. Mainly the fact that she ended up falling in love with Noah thanks to her sister Kitty. Now, yeah, she ends up falling, like, really in love with Noah, and then her sister tries to break them up, which she successfully does, but for one leg, and then they end up getting back together again, which is nice. And it's nice seeing Emma being more of the chilled, relaxed one hanging out with Noah, and Kitty being the one more worrying about the race, which made her a lot less annoying, and it was just fun seeing her and Noah's relationship. So yeah, like I said, she's vice versa of her sister. But I feel like when Emma was a little annoying, it wasn't as annoying as when Kitty was annoying, which makes her a lot better. With that, let's move on to number 25, which would go to Owen. Honestly, Total Drama is not Total Drama if Owen doesn't appear at least one time. Like, he's appeared in the first 3 seasons as competitors, and 4 and 5 in the background. Or, I mean, as a side character, I guess. And of course, he was one of the ones in Redonkulous Race. Owen's a pretty interesting character, and he's super nice. Plus, of course, he's funny. I'm not gonna lie, his worst season was definitely the original. I feel like the creators made him just a big farting machine who ate too much, and it kind of annoyed me, not gonna lie. But as the seasons went on, I feel like they did a good job finding out what worked with Owen and what didn't. Action, he was still just okay, but he was a lot more likable in World Tour and definitely Redonkulous Race as well. And of course, I love the random appearances that he has as well. Owen's just such a likable, goofy character. I like his friendship with Noah and his relationship with Izzy. It's just so funny. And I'm glad he had a lot more character development since the first season. Instead of just being the big fart machine, now he actually, like, he loves Izzy and he likes his friend Noah, etc. It's a lot better than season 1. But yeah, I like Owen. He's definitely a good character. Now let's move on to number 24, which would go to Sean. Yet again, definitely one of the better Pakatu Island characters. It's kind of funny how he thinks everything's going to be a zombie apocalypse thing, which could have easily gotten old, but it was actually quite interesting. And I like how he has to, like, he still thinks there's a zombie apocalypse, but he has to tone it down for his girlfriend Jasmine, too. And yeah, literally one of the only relationships we had this season was Jasmine and Sean. An actual, like, healthy-ish one. At least towards the end. And of course, it was nice seeing him end up making it to the final 2 along with Sky, and I'm glad that he ended up winning because, I mean, he deserved it more than anyone else, I think. Well, except number 23, Ella. Is it just me, or does she look exactly like Snow White? But man, yet again, another good Pakatu Island character. It's too bad she got eliminated way before characters like Topher and Dave, actual bad characters who should have got eliminated, like, first. Ella's just super nice and likes to sing songs. Unfortunately, because she's singing to the villain of the season, Chris McClane, he bans music from the season because, it's not World Tour anymore, the best season ever. It's now the worst, it's Pakatu. So no singing allowed, and because, of course, Ella ends up singing thanks to her teammates, cough cough sugar. She ends up getting eliminated then because of it. Honestly, I think that's a dumb way to eliminate Ella. That just makes Chris look like a bigger just jerk. I also hated how Chris sided with Sugar in most cases, because Sugar would pick on Ella a lot in this season, which really ruined Sugar's character in my opinion. And I hated how Chris would just always side with Sugar, because why the heck not? Ella deserved a million more than anybody, besides, like, Sean. This season was just such a wreck. And no, I will never watch this season again. I watched it twice, and that is bad enough. No more. Okay, now let's move on to number 22, which would go to Alejandro. I get kind of mixed when I think about this character. I would like to say, though, now we're in, like, the best of the best, starting with Alejandro. At first, he was a cocky, annoying, just dumb, idiot, horrible, just Justin remake. But after seeing both of his seasons twice, I actually will admit he's actually a pretty interesting character. And, don't even get me started on the Ali Heather stuff. The first time I watched World Tour, I hated Alejandro. I hated how he's literally just a clone of Justin and just as annoying, plus the villain of the season, and that he made it to the frickin' Final 2 and won in some cases. And was a little upset he came back in All-Stars, but at least I found him a lot nicer in that season. But actually, rewatching World Tour again, Alejandro became a really interesting character, and I like that what they ended up doing with him. Probably after seeing all those annoying villains that we saw, like Scott and Mal, and of course Chris McClane, it was nice seeing an actual well-constructed villain. And I like how he wasn't terribly annoying like Mal was or Chris, but still had his villainous sides, which was nice. And I like how, I guess his main target was just Heather, of all people, which was a lot better than if it would have been like all the side characters. Which I guess he sort of had his side on, but he definitely was targeting Heather the most. But actually admitted at the end of World Tour that he actually ended up liking Heather. But then Heather kicks him in the you-know-what, and there goes Alejandro, which I guess he did deserve that. I just find it funny how if anyone would make it to the Final 2, it was Heather and Alejandro of all people. And then, of course, Alejandro reappeared in All-Stars as well. He was in the robot after the, I guess, volcano burned him or whatever, but he was in the robot for all this time, and then it was revealed that it was Alejandro in there. And it was fun seeing the cast reaction, especially Heather. And I like how in All-Stars, instead of Alejandro being like the main villain, he's just more trying to, I guess, have a weird relationship with Heather instead, which is a lot, it was so funny. And he actually made it, well, fairly far. He got up to 6th place, not the Final 2 this time. But even when, like, Heather was out, it was interesting seeing Alejandro's life without Heather. Also, like the episode where he ends up fighting his twin brother, and he clearly says the other person, there's two people who would not want to fight, those being Heather and his brother Jose. And when Jose was making fun of Heather, Alejandro actually stood up to her and beat him up. And you gotta love the last episode, too, where Heather and Alejandro have to help Mike out, and they're just both more focused on each other than the million. And that, of course, is until Chris comes and ruins it, and then they both fight over the million again. But at least they still both love each other, which was hilarious. The annoying parts of Alejandro definitely come at the very beginning with all the cockiness, but I like it a lot better when he actually tries flirting with Heather, and the whole Ali-Heather stuff is so fun to see. Plus, I like him in All-Stars a lot better than World Tour, so, you know what? I don't mind Alejandro, and I actually like him as a character. Now, let's move on to number 21, which would go to Courtney. Oh, I don't know where to begin with her. Courtney is such an interesting, just odd character. But I like that. That's what gives Courtney, Courtney. That's what makes Courtney, Courtney, I mean. In Season 1, she really wanted to win, but then fell in love with Duncan and got eliminated. Season 2, she had her lawyers on her the whole time, and then eventually she ended up getting eliminated due to the annoyance of everyone. World Tour, she stayed in it actually pretty long without coming back or anything or getting eliminated early. She actually stayed in the full season pretty long. And yeah, she wasn't terribly annoying this season either, not like Action at least. And it was cool seeing her friendship with Gwen. and the whole thing with and then when she found out Gwen kissed Duncan, then she got mad, which is normal. That's fine. Someone should have alerted her that, hey, they weren't together anymore, which, wait, were they? I don't even remember at this point. Courtney acted like they were still together, so I mean, I guess they still were? I don't know. I'm confused. And it was actually really funny seeing her try to team up with Heather to get rid of Gwen. That part was funny. I didn't like the whole love triangle stuff, but I mean, seeing Courtney try to lose challenges just to get out Gwen actually made Heather hate someone more than Gwen, which was... it was so funny. I love the way it worked. We didn't see her then until All-Stars, and yet again, she was a pretty interesting character in All-Stars as well. I liked her relationship with Scott, and I'm glad that she ended up finding someone besides Duncan. Even though, let's be real, Duncan and Courtney is the OG one, but I'm glad at least Courtney found someone else. Well, until Sunday Muddy Sunday, where Courtney made a chart of who should make it to the final final two, and drew Scott with a rat's tail. But hey, at least she got another chance in a relationship with Scott, and it's a lot better than, like, Gwen and Duncan. Ugh. Also the fact that she made Scott a much more interesting and better character, too. But yeah, I liked her appearance in All-Stars. After that, we didn't see much of her yet, unless if you count Total Drama-Rama. But yeah, Courtney's a pretty interesting character. Now let's move on to number 20. And yes, we are in the top 20 now, with number 20 going to Jeff and Brody. Or, in my rankings, it would go Brody, then Jeff. So yeah, this is actually number 20 and number 19. Wow, so this was a very surprising team in Redonkulous Race. Not gonna lie, I'd rather Jeff and Bridget, but at least we got an interesting character to substitute. Their bromance is fun, and I like how they're both surfer dudes, and they're both just so chill and relaxed. It's just so fun. And even when they ended up getting eliminated, they ended up coming back, and in some cases ended up winning this season, like the first time I watched it. I haven't 100% Redonkulous Race Part 2 yet, so I'm not quite sure if it's them or the what's their names? The police cadets who end up winning the Netflix one, because the YouTube one, it was Jeff and Brody. So I'm not quite sure how the Netflix one is. But yeah, Jeff and Brody are a really interesting group. And I like how Brody ends up falling in love with MacArthur. I find that hilariously funny, and also the fact that they're shown on the beach and Brody's making a sandcastle out of MacArthur. That's just so funny. But yeah, these two are a very good group. Jeff is probably better just because he's been in like 3 other seasons before that, and I like his relationship with Bridget too. So yeah, now let's move on to number 18 and 17, which would go to Ryan and Stephanie. My order, though, would be Stephanie, then Ryan. Both are really good, though, and man, they're such an interesting and funny team in the Redonkulous Race. I love how they start off as, like, daters and the lovey-dovey couple, and then they turn into, like, the prickly couple and start fighting all the time, and literally have their names changed from the daters to the haters. And I love how every episode we get something new. One day they're ignoring each other, then the next day he's agreeing with everything she says, and then they're trying to... It's just so funny, and I love the different ideas they come up with. And I like how they both still love each other, and that the episode they ended up getting eliminated on proved that they still both have feelings for each other and still love each other. So while these guys got eliminated in, 6th place, they were still an interesting team, and they were fun to watch. Both of them fighting is just the most silly stuff ever, and it's probably even funnier than Chet and Lorenzo. And I'm glad that when they were eliminated, that we still had these two to laugh with. And I'm glad they had a good balance of them hating each other, but also still loving each other. And it's a lot better than what we saw with Carrie and Devin, where everything was slow-paced. But yeah, these two are definitely one of my favorite Redonkulous Race teams. And now, let's move on to number 16 and 15, another Redonkulous Race team, which would go to Jock and Jose. Man, I missed the villains. The last 3 seasons of Total Drama, we got very weak villains, and heck, even the frickin' host as a villain. Now that's just lazy. I'm glad to see a team actually being the villain now. Just like the olden days, and just like Heather and Alejandro, Jack and Jose, they have a perfect balance of like being evil, but not being like unlikably evil, right, Mal, Chris? I love every time they're on screen. They are hilarious as heck. They're both. I love. I forget if it's Jack or Jose. The boy's accent is hilarious. I think it's Jack, but man, these two are just so funny, and I like how, like, they slowly descent into craziness as the season goes on. They go from smiling all the time to both of them just, I guess, evilly smiling the whole time. And honestly, they were probably the strongest team this season. Yeah, they did make a few, I guess, speed bumps here and there. And, I mean, they did have the most penalties out of everyone. But like I said, they were punished for their crimes, and I like it. Unlike the original Total Drama with like Heather, where she got away with everything, I'm glad these two, like, they were still evil, but they got what was coming for them, and they got eliminated in third place. So I mean, they made it pretty far, and they were probably the strongest. I don't know. MacArthur and Sanders and the Jeff and Brody were pretty strong too. But man, these two were just goofy. Anytime they were on screen, it was just a laugh. And like I said, I'm glad they found a good balance between like evil, but not being like unlikably evil. And I'm glad to have interesting villains again. Because, like I said, I was so tired of the villains we were getting in the newer Total Drama seasons, it just wasn't funny anymore. But now, they actually did their homework again when it came to the Redonkulous Racist villains. And man, they ended up being better than most of the other people in any of the Total Drama's history. And like I said, I like their slow descent into, like, insanity. They start off just playing it, and then they start, like, sabotaging some of the teams. And it's fun actually seeing them try to get help from some of the teams too, even if that means they sabotage them, or if the other team's like, no, we're not going to help you. Man, I like these two. Anyway, let's move on to number 14, which would go to Sanders. She's a pretty interesting character, and I like how she tries to calm MacArthur down and also sort of be the, like, I guess, normie of the group, if you want to call it that. I mean, that definitely makes her less likable than MacArthur, but I mean, she's still likable enough. She's nice, and she tries to help out the teams sometimes, but then she also, like, for example, the Ice Dancers, Jack and Jose, she doesn't want to help them out, and she's definitely the brains of the group, too. I mean, I like MacArthur's insanity, which is why she's better, but Sanders is an interesting character, and I like her. They did a pretty good job with her. So yeah, now let's move on to number 13, which would go to Bridget. Yet again, a nice character. Basically like Sanders, except she's in more episodes. And she hosted the Total Drama Aftermath with her boyfriend, Jeff. I like that little side show, and it's too bad that they didn't continue that in the other 3 seasons. Bridget overall is just a nice character. She made it pretty far in Island, and then the first eliminated in Action, and then she was one of the first in World Tour. So yeah, she didn't do quite as good in the other 2 seasons, but she made it fairly far in the original at least. Overall, just another good Total Drama character. So now let's move on to number 12, which would go to